is Lani and I'm an orchestra director at Alamo Heights Junior School in San Antonio, Texas.
And I'm Johanna Kitchell, the orchestra director at Riverside Junior High in Fishers, Indiana. And today we're going to talk about tuning strings in the young ensemble. I find that beginning students don't have the aural training or pitch identification to tune themselves. So for the first while, I help them with their tuning. As we progress and my students develop their ears, I encourage them to identify their own needs.
After you and your students feel comfortable with this routine, it might be time to start teaching your students how to tune themselves. In the beginning, I always have my students sing their open string pitches. I find that this helps my students identify pitch better. When I'm teaching my students how to tune, I always tell them to start with the fine tuners first. I have my students tune themselves first with a handheld tuner. Then afterwards, I have them tune to a drum pitch. That way, they have experience doing both before we move on to the next steps.
Once your students can create a consistent tone with their bow, you can move on to long tone tuning. Start at the bottom with your basses. Then add your cellos, violas, and violins. I encourage my students to use a mezzo-piano dynamic at the loudest as they're doing their tuning. The idea is that they are focusing on their own sound and not having their sound distract anybody else while we're tuning using long tones.
Once your students feel comfortable doing this, you can start to introduce perfect fifths. I introduce perfect fifths by having my students play a single string first. I have my entire orchestra tune their A strings to a drum pitch. Afterwards, I divide my orchestra into two groups. I divide my groups into higher and lower strings, the higher strings being violin 1 and 2, and my lower strings being viola, cello, bass. My entire orchestra sustains their A until I motion to the lower strings to change the note D. Then they're going to tune their D string over the first group's A strings. What they're hearing is the interval of a perfect fifth. Once it's in tune, I will have the first group change to a D and tune in unison to the Ds from before. I continue this through all the open strings. I do this for a couple weeks and then I have my groups switch roles so that they both have experiencing tuning in fifths as well as unison. I find by doing this, the students are then more prepared to tune in double stops afterwards. Once your students have a good grasp of perfect fifths, you can start to introduce harmonic tuning to your cellists and basses.
We hope that our ideas may help with tuning your young ensembles.